the title of our podcast slash video cast, however you're listening or watching this across the world. It's called Wellness Warriors, and that doesn't just refer to us. It means anyone that's actually into the wellness lifestyle and wellness business. We consider you a wellness warrior, and that's kind of the title, I guess, of our first episode. Starting off with Chuck and I. So maybe how about we just do like a really quick intro of who we are, and then we can later on get into a little bit deeper about our journey. So Chuck, if you don't mind, maybe just kicking off, quick intro of who you are and why you're here.
Yeah. Well, I live in Virginia Beach. I have two young kids, 6 and 3. Happily married and enjoying life in my young 40s. Come from the corporate world, 20 years of doing basically corporate sales. And I'll get into the story of sort of how I've got into the wellness side of business and what passions have led me there here in a little bit. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. So my background, I'm a little more mature than you, but let's say we're in the same generation. I'll put it that way. But I'm actually an Aussie. If you can pick up the accent, I have lived and travelled across different countries, and I kind of headed to China and Asia close to 20 years ago, and found a great base here and a lot of opportunities working in the health and wellness industry. I worked as a PE teacher and physical trainer and so on into business. But an Aussie. I do have 2 children as well. I'm happily unmarried, but about to this year tie the knot again with my lovely partner. So that's a secret that nobody knows yet except you.
In the world, jeez.
Yeah, and so that's a little bit about me. And I guess, Chuck, how about we just kind of give listeners and viewers a heads up about what they can expect when they tune in to our videos and our podcasts. Just a quick sort of summary. What's the top 5 things people can expect when they spend and invest their time to listen and watch us?
Yeah, hopefully it's touching on a lot of things because we want to provide. Ed and I, we meet a lot. And we've been saying for a long time now, man, we just need to record these meetings because we talk about a lot of really good things that we think a lot of folks in the world would benefit from hearing, and we want to share them. So it's, as a human being, things that you are able to do that we're discovering being in the industry that are helpful for you to start implementing in your life. If you're a corporation, things that you can implement into your business that will help your members or help your employees with their fitness and health journeys. So it's a multitude of takeaways that we're hoping to provide out to the world by putting this together and just sharing that information.
Yeah, sure. And I think maybe just add one more thing to that there is a ripple effect of people that are truly dedicated to this industry, where we can influence and have positive impact on people around the world that we may never know or never meet, but just as a ripple effect of what we're putting out there to the universe and to humanity. One person may pick up one topic or create some incredible program or help one person that needs some help at the particular time in their life, and somebody's life has changed as a result of something that we may have initiated. So those of you that are working in this industry, if you are let's say a fitness professional, a wellness professional, if you work in the corporate world, perhaps in a leadership position or in human resources where you're also responsible and looking after people as well, and then this show is for you. If you are an individual that's on a personal wellness journey where you'd like to make positive improvements to your health and well-being, this show is all for you as well.
It's structured because we feel like that's going to be helpful for viewers to understand what they're going to be able to listen to, what topic's going to be coming up, or help them find us. But at the same time, we ultimately want this to be truly us, authentic, what you would normally get if you were just kind of a fly on the wall talking to us, because that's really where the ideas stem from. Let's record all this stuff and let's put it up there for everybody so that they can see it. And maybe there's some nuggets here and there that they can take away into their lives, into their business, and help others.
Exactly. And Chuck, I guess you'd agree, over the last year or so that we've been working together, we've had many, many meetings online, over Zoom and different sort of platforms where we've met some incredible people around the world doing different things, whether it's in business or corporate or individuals or people that are working as ambassadors or people that are just looking for some type of support or advice. And we have learned so much just from those interactions with people. And many times in our Zoom meetings, we said, my goodness, I wish we would have recorded that moment that just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because but you can't fake it again. You can't say, oh, let's hit record and say all that again. It doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah.
So and I guess in saying that, Chuck, having met you, let's say a year or so ago, and learning something about your personal story, there's always a reason why people are doing what they do. There's always a reason if you really dig deep. Why are people working in some industry? Why do they have a particular lifestyle or certain habits? That if you trace that back, there's some roots behind that of why that's actually happened. And you've got one of the most compelling stories that I have ever heard. Coming from a corporate background world, which I'm sure you're going to share with us, to where you are now, like as a business owner of a health and wellness company that has international impact. So, how does a person go from what you were doing and your background to what you're doing now? So perhaps you can maybe share some of that story with our audience.
Yeah, I would say the first thing that has attributed to where I am, and I would ultimately say where I'm going. And I'll preface it by saying that I'm still a victim of this as well, right? I would say overcoming fear, right? And understanding that fear is false evidence appearing real. It, there's been plenty of times where I have dreamt, inspired to do great things in life, and constantly have had that other voice in my head that says, you can't do that because of this, right? And I think we all can relate to that. For me, it was a profound life event that occurred that helped me realize that I'm letting fear take over my life. So, for the lack of, for the sake of sharing the story, but not to get it too overwinded, I would kind of trace it back to my decision in college. So I wanted to be a professional baseball player my whole life. That was the reason why when I would go to the gym every single day in high school, I was 140 pounds wet as a catcher, right? And I don't know if you know anything about baseball in the United States, but catchers are the largest guy on the team. And I was certainly not the largest guy on the team, but man, I was good and I loved that position. So the only thing that was missing was about 45 pounds of muscle. So I worked my tail off and it didn't matter. All I did was gain strength. I remember being at the gym. We had weight training class in high school, and that was the best class. That was my favorite class, right? Because I got to work out in between classes, and we would always do max once a week. We would max out, and I would have these huge football guys coming over to me, and I was doing like leg presses and bench presses, and they're like, "How much do you weigh?" Because you got to put your name up on the wall in your weight classes and stuff. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm 130 pounds." They're like, "You're benching 275 pounds?" I was like, "Yeah, this is how you're supposed to get big, right? Because I need to gain like 45 pounds." I just couldn't, like, it just wasn't in the cards then for whatever reason. But I worked my tail off for the whole purpose of trying to get to the point where I can fit into this little mold of what I thought Major League Baseball players or scouts or college recruiters wanted and needed. And, we had a great senior year. We won state championships, and I was deflated because none of us got recruited. 8 seniors, state championship team in Maryland, and none of us got recruited to a 4-year college. It was depressing. So I got recruited to the local community college, and it was a terrible program. I got a scholarship, which was books, and that's it, just books. And I decided that this isn't the place I'm going to be able to succeed, not only in baseball, but in just my career. So I transferred in mid semester or mid year to Salisbury University. I didn't know anybody other than the person I was dating at the time. And when I went there, the day before tryouts, I got a phone call from the coach that I was not allowed to walk on to the practice squad or to try out for the team. I couldn't walk out on the field. It was against NCAA rules because the head coach was so mad at the community college that I left the program. I only attended fall ball, not the real season. That he did not sign an NCAA release form. Yeah. And I was like, what can I do? Can I get my mom to literally drive the practice pants down there and sign this? He called me the day before to tell me this. He said no. And I said, well, can I have that done and come 2 days, 3 days later, a week later? Because tryouts last for like 2 weeks. And he's like, nope, you can't. You have to do it next year. So I'm like, oh crap. I was already scared because I didn't know if I was going to make the team. Fear, right? But I was still going to do it. I was ready. And then I had this curveball thrown at me, and that led to, I would say, some poor college decisions, right? But you make decisions and you stick with them. And there's just that decision. I say it's poor because it led to me not trying out for the baseball team. That's the only reason why I say it's poor. But I joined a fraternity. I didn't know anybody. That was my way of trying to meet people. And for me, what clicked for me to join a fraternity at the time was the big sale to me throughout the recruiting process was the fact that after you graduate, there's this huge network of folks that you can get jobs with. So I was like, oh, even my little 19-year-old self knew at that point that was a good thing, right? And it actually turned out pretty well. I've gotten a lot of opportunities career-wise because of the fraternity. But after the next semester, when I could try out again, I decided I'm at a D3 school. I'm probably not going to go pro. And I learned that all these baseball players that I've met, they have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day and practice. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy my college career waking up at 5 a.m. all the time. And I have this huge group of friends now that they like to have fun, right? So I opted to not play or not try out. And but that my passion for fitness really kind of ties to that whole baseball experience. Well, what I had to do to try to gain strength. I never really left that routine. Now I wasn't working out every day, obviously in college or even after that, but I kept a really good routine. And then you fast forward to, wanting to have a family, have a career, right? And the busy life of trying to have a young family. My wife and I, we tried for a while after getting married, and couldn't have kids, so we ended up going through what's called IVF, in vitro fertilization. And yeah, so it was about 3 years of trying, and we successfully got pregnant, which was awesome. My son Chandler, was born in 2018, but he was born 2 months early. My wife ended up getting preeclampsia, and I don't know if it was related to IVF at all, but the problem for having kids was me. And I think I'll tie that into probably a different story later because there's some things I learned health wise for me personally that might have answered why I had some infertility issues. But luckily, medicine is so advanced it can still help us have natural kids. Like this is our child. It's my genes. It's Leah's genes. They were frozen babies, right? One crazy story is that my children, 6 and 3, are technically twins. Wrap your mind around that. Yeah. So they were conceived at the exact same time and frozen in time, right?
From the same batch, so to speak. Is
The
that
same batch. Yep. So they pump
wow?
the woman, they pump the Leah full of hormones. They take my sperm. They make, I'm not using technical term here, but they make babies, right? And I think we had 13, and 8 of them got to like 5 days where they looked really healthy, and then they froze them.
Wow.
They just randomly pick when they're trying to get you pregnant. They randomly pick. Not all of them stick either. So they randomly pick. Chandler stuck as the first one, and Lincoln was the second. They're basically frozen twins.
That is incredible.
I know,
Like
right?
yeah, like I've obviously I know what IVF stands for and why people do it. I never truly understood the process behind it. Like I had no idea that's what they did. Like I thought it was basically one now, and if you want to have another child later, then you go through it again, type of thing. That is unbelievable.
It was as a couple, it was our really first challenge, like a big stress challenge. Like I wouldn't say challenge in the way of like our marriage, but challenge in the way of like as a team. This is the first thing that we've had to try to overcome together, figure out, communicate. And we're a really good team, and we've just consistently become a better team because of all the challenges that we've had. But that was, we're looking back, that's really probably the biggest first one, and then
Mm.
it continues. So bear with me because it's a long story, but I don't know. I feel like all of the details really help, and maybe people can relate too. So Chandler comes 2 months early, right? Big surprise. And he's in the NICU for, I believe, 30, 35 days. So the NICU in the US is where, little babies go, like the ICU for little babies, right? And those nurses, man, they are like top notch. Chandler was literally 3 pounds when he was born. And he had to get a feeding tube through his nose, and it was the birth of Chandler. I'll give you like a brief overview of that stress. Have you ever watched the show House? It was like I was living in an episode of House. So, preeclampsia is just basically like Leah swelled up. She got so much water, and like she just really just retained so much water. Her blood pressure was so high, it really messed with her body quite a bit. And because she was at such a high stress level, high blood pressure wise, because we got to the hospital 2 months early, right? Because I forget the exact detail, but there was some sort of blood pressure number. When they found out she had preeclampsia, they were like, if you hit this blood pressure number, you go home with this monitor, you got to come in immediately. So we kept monitoring that, and it happened, but like a week after we found out she had preeclampsia. So it was fast, and right before Christmas. And they were like, we have to get this thing rolling. We have to get the baby out because it's not healthy. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for the baby. So as soon as they hit that needle in her back to numb her to get ready for birth, the placenta relaxed and just suffocated Chandler. So all you hear is beep, 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 beep. And I'm just on the other side of the room because they made me move. I'm on the other side of the room, just like I'm watching. I'm an observer, but I'm not there. Like it was an out of the body experience. It was nuts, man. I felt literally at the time I'm thinking is this like I'm watching House and I am in the freaking show myself. But Lee doesn't know what's going on. She can't feel anything. There's like 50 doctors in there. They take her out within 30 seconds and wheel her to the ER. And they give me all these gowns, like put it on, put it on, put it on. When you do the pre-birth stuff, you go through the walkthrough, like you go to classes beforehand because it's your first child, you don't know what's going on, and they walk you through like where the children will have birth, like normal birth, and like they describe how the dad could be in the room, and we didn't know the sex, we didn't want to know the sex, we were going to wait until the day of for it to be announced. Um, what more natural surprise can you get, right? So we were excited by that. So I'm sitting here, I have this gown on and I'm sitting in the hallway, and my wife's gone. I don't know where she is, and I'm being told to just wait here, and I'll be told what to do. And next thing you know, I'm just starting to freak out. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I was told with my classes that I'll be able to like join, but I didn't realize that if it's an emergency, and they have to do some other stuff in there, I can't be in there. So luckily, I was able to come in like right as Chandler was being born. But man, I thought I was going to lose them both. Next thing we're in the NICU. We're thinking, okay, this is what we'll deal with. This it is what it is. Just like, what can you do about it, right? Like, you just got to go with the flow. They do blood tests, and it's again another out of body experience where you have a doctor that comes by and says, hey, your son's healthy, but these liver numbers don't look good. You're like, okay, what does that mean? So you just constantly learning all this stuff, and they're trying to explain it to you in a way where you can understand it, but you're stressed. You don't really understand what's going on. You're sort of not there because you're out of body. Like, is this happening? Right. But long story short, we found out a few days after he was born that he was born with sort of half of his bile ducts, less than half. And they weren't really sure if it was biliary atresia or what, because they really, even his, to now, they don't even know if what exactly it was. But it was a form of biliary atresia where he wasn't able to get all the bile through his liver processed because there were some ducts missing. So that led to him having Jonas. Thank you. And he's very yellow, and he was itchy all the time. Poor guy. He was super small. He couldn't really process a lot of the nutrients, so he just really couldn't grow. And it was not really communicated because why would you tell us that early that hey, it's inevitable your son's going to need a liver transplant? But throughout, I would say 2 years of many doctor's appointments, trying to figure out like different specialists, it's that was the first very large stressor that we've had as a couple and as adults because managing all the different information that's coming your way when you're going through a health situation like that you're not even the one that's unhealthy, it's somebody else. So you would think that hey, you could have the right mindset to remember all these things and to be organized and to like not have it affect your stress. You try, but it's a hard obstacle to overcome. I remember the first time we realized together that this was going to be inevitable, that he would need a liver transplant. Is we had a specialist at University of Maryland that said, "I don't really understand these numbers." He was like a year and a half, 2 years old, and I recommend that you start seeing a specialist. That's how he referred to him. So he gave us this number and he said, "Call them and book an appointment." Well, Leah had it on speaker. We were just tackling this thing together. And as soon as we called that number, the phone tree picks up and it says, "Thank you for calling Georgetown Transplant Institute." And we hung up and we both started crying. We're like, "Is this for real? Like, why wouldn't you tell us that you were calling to schedule a transplant?" And it was obviously not for that. It was to schedule a specialist. But why were we meeting with a specialist about transplants? Does he need a transplant right now? Like, we were just really stressed out and worried. What does that look like? How's that gonna affect his life? And so we went through the process. We met with that specialist. They insured us at that time that this liver that he was born with, he'll probably be able to have that for 10, 15, 20 years. He'll, as long as it doesn't lead to other health issues, we'll kick this can down the road for as long as we possibly can. And for whatever reason, that just, obviously you don't want your child to go through a transplant. But looking back, I was relieved at the time because we didn't have to do it anytime soon. But it was still very stressful to know that it's gonna happen eventually. And next thing you know, COVID hits. And we're like, how's this going to affect our son? Because, if he gets sick, what's going to happen to him? So we were very stressed, very worried. We were locked up like everybody else, and we didn't get to see anybody. And it felt like Groundhog's Day. We had baby number 2 on the way because we were crazy enough to we didn't want Chandler and Lincoln to be too far away in age. So even though he was going through all his stuff, we went through another round of IVF and succeeded with Lincoln, and she was expecting. We decided, hey, this is a great time to completely up where we grew up in Maryland and live in a completely different location and move to Virginia Beach. So it was a bold move, but it felt good at the time, and quite frankly, we love it here, so we're happy. Um, but it led to some additional challenges because maybe 2 months or 3, 4, 5 months after we moved here, I just had a regular visit. Actually, we got notified by Georgetown that he might qualify for a get this right. It was a drug trial. So this drug that they were going to trial or see if he would qualify for was going to help pass the bile through his liver more, and that would allow him to live with his liver for many, many more years than the 15 years we thought, right? So it was wild, man. We got there, and I would say within 5 minutes of being in the room waiting for the doctor to come in, that's heading up this drug trial, the lady looked at Chandler and said, he doesn't qualify. Just his belly, because he had a swollen belly. She's like, yeah, he doesn't qualify. He's too far gone. And I would recommend that we move forward with the transplant immediately. And we were like, hold on, we literally came here to see if we could prolong this. And you're telling us right now is when we need to get this done, when less than 6 months ago, we met with a different doctor there who said we have many years, right? So shock number 4 or 4,000, right? Then knowing the insurance world, I'm thinking, hold on, we need to do this now. It was like September, in the U.S. every January, most of the time, every January, your copays and deductibles restart, right? So most deductible plans in the U.S. are like $3, $4, $5,000 that you have to meet first, and then the insurance company meets. So all these doctor's appointments that we've had since he was born, I've met that deductible max every single year, right? No, normally most people are healthy. They don't have to go to a bunch of doctor's appointments and specialists that they might only have $500 that they have to meet out of the $5,000 deductible. And that's what you hope for when you're healthy and you don't have to go use your health insurance that much. But every year we were maxing it out. By that time in September, we had already maxed out our deductible. So my insurance mind was, I don't want to do this. But if the last thing I want to do is you go through this whole process of getting him ready, finding someone, finding a liver to transplant on my son, and then it happens in January, and I'm like, when it. So I literally in that same meeting looked at the doctor and I said, I feel terrible asking this, but if this is something that needs to happen ASAP, can we do whatever we can to have it happen this year? She's like, yeah, we'll speed this thing up. So then that started the process of me qualifying. Leah just had Lincoln, or was about to. Yeah, just had her a month ago, a month before that, or 2 months before that, and so she didn't qualify to go through the process of being a donor for a year and a half after she had given birth. So she was disqualified. It was me, and if I didn't qualify, I would have had to ask family members, or wait for somebody to walk into the clinic and say, I'll donate a portion of my liver, or wait for a deceased donor. So believe it or not, you learn a little bit about livers when you go through this process. You can actually donate. Anyone can walk in to a transplant institute, which, hey, if you're listening to this, and you have a healthy liver, I'm a walking example that you could donate a portion of it and still live a very healthy life. Matter of fact, you could donate a portion of your liver. I donated 17.1% to my son, and your liver will grow back. Believe it or not, it grows back to 100% of its efficiency, but about 90% of the size. But my little 17.1% fit right into my almost 3-year-old son at the time. And as he grows, now he's 6, it's a 6-year-old liver. And it's going to grow to be a 40-year-old liver and an 80-year-old liver. So it's going to be 100% efficient for him, and it's been working great. But that process, man, many, many doctor's appointments, many exams to find out if you're healthy enough, and many meetings, many times where I would get an email from the doctor that they wanted to meet with me or have a phone call with me following medical exams and blood work. And I'm thinking I'm going to get a phone call that I can't save my son's life. So, doing that and, just kind of working, it was hard to stay focused on work when that was going on in life. But, you try to do what you can. And luckily, I got a phone call one day. I remember clearly I was outside, and, after a couple, I mean, I was super healthy. They found nothing wrong other than just some small little things like we had to do a liver biopsy because they I guess some people are born with a little bit of a fatty liver, and they said it's just a little bit of a fatty liver. I'm thinking, oh great, if I wouldn't have joined a fraternity, I probably would have had a fatty liver. But if I just kept playing baseball, so I didn't want to have any regrets. And I'm glad that not only could I qualify to be a donor, but that I didn't have to look back and say, "Oh, wish I would have like lived a much healthier life, and not had that one beer," you know. And so I was outside, got the call that I qualified and that we're getting things scheduled, and I just fell down on the ground and started crying. It's just sheer happiness. I didn't have to ask family members. And then my sister's like, "I'll donate," and I'm like, I don't want to have that happen, right? Um, and kind of find out that actually the same time they found out I qualified, there was someone that walked in and donated a portion of their liver, and that was a good match for Chandler. So if I didn't actually qualify, we would have been able to move forward with that transplant around the same time anyway. So thank you to whoever that person was. Um, so look, the surgery, it was a big one for both of us. But when you do a lot of googling, which is not recommended, when you do a lot of googling, it was still actually positive, believe it or not. I did Google what the risks were of me dying and him dying, and actually it was really, really, really low. Which when you Google that, you're expecting the opposite, right? Um, so, but it doesn't stop your mind from maybe going into some dark places. And I remember we had to move up there, so to speak, for a little bit. So we went to Leah's uncle's house in Virginia that was like 30 minutes away from DC, and we had to be up there a few weeks early, and it's right around Christmas, right? So it's like the beginning of December, and it was probably my first time sort of understanding that meditation is really important. I think meditation before I had always approached it as I can't shut my mind up and it doesn't work. Versus understanding that it was like all the other things I've done in my life that the more you do it, the better you get. Um, and that I needed meditation so badly at that point because of my stress level that when I was up there in Virginia getting ready for surgery, I was meditating a lot and having some time to myself, getting myself ready for this. Um, that it dawned on me that when I was in college, I guess but this is what happens when you clear your mind, right? Some things come to you. When I was in college and I opted to not go down the path of being a professional baseball player, guess what popped into my head and made me choose the second path? A movie, of all things, right? A movie called Major Leagues. And I remember in the movie Major Leagues that the guy that played on the team, one of the guys that was on the team, was the owner, and he bought the team so that he could put himself on the team. My 19-year-old decision to major in business administration so that I could eventually be successful enough as an entrepreneur to buy a baseball team so I put myself on the team was my second dream. So it dawned on me then that like I'd never, because of fear, attempted to go down that path to strive for that dream. And as silly as it sounds, even just saying it out loud, like, yes, my dream is to own a baseball team, right? That was my second dream. And I quit on it because I was scared. I was fearful of whatever venture I was going to go down and not working out. You name the millions of excuses, which are just completely false. It could happen, but it can't happen, but it also could happen, right? So, like, in that moment of about to be cut open and save my son's life, asking, am I okay with not going for my dreams? And concluding, no. If I get past this, I promised myself that I'm going to strive for that dream, and I'm not going to let fear get in the way of that. So it was because of that moment that I was able to sort of do a little bit of a reset. So was it stressful? Yeah. But did it help me? Big time, right? a positive takeaway, like what do they call it? Making lemonade out of lemons, right? So that reset and that moment was the opportunity for me to say, okay, you were just literally doing Groundhog's Day every day. You fell into this career that you're in. Although it's been very good for me and my family, you fell into it. It's not your dream. So you now have a big passion of fitness and health because it helped you save your son. Maybe go down that path of figuring out how to make a business out of it or to acquire a business, invest in a business that's doing that. And next thing you know, as the universe does, provided me resources, education. I found a consultant that can help me figure out how to do what we did with Studio Sweat on Demand, which is, identify a business, do all the things that you would need to do to acquire a successful business. My training, if you want to say, my indoctrination in college, it's all about mindset. And my mindset going in as an entrepreneur was what they taught me in college. In every single class in college, in addition to management, because people are going to go get jobs, they're not all going to go start businesses, was a startup mentality. So I have a book right in here that I wrote many great ideas down, and I've never, because of fear and because I'm making false assumptions, but I never approached any of these ideas because ultimately I thought I needed thousands and thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to pursue any of these ideas. And many ideas, they're not in your level of expertise. So, you're going to have this huge learning curve. You name the excuses, I made them. And next thing you know, after the surgery, some other way of doing business and being successful as an entrepreneur comes my way. And it's here. Hey, these businesses are successful. They have revenue and they have customers, and you can actually acquire them because people are looking to retire and looking to get out of the business. So mergers and acquisition, I learned a lot about that, at night and on weekends, because it was really interesting. And for me, it was aha moment again of like, wow, there's another way of doing this. And I didn't really even, I knew it existed. I didn't know much about it. But that the universe gave that information to brought it to me, and I started gobbling it all up. You know,
I'll give you a moment to breathe because I just want to reflect on some of the golden nuggets that we just covered. And knowing more about your story, I know that we're only halfway there. Like people that are listening and digesting what this gentleman has been through and his wife and his family over the last, let's say, decade or so, that in itself is enough to make the hairs stand up on the back of your neck and thank the universe for the gifts and the health that we have now, because you have no idea what people are going through. You said one thing, that when you were waiting for the surgery for the liver transplant, you had like an aha moment. And this reminded me of, I'm not sure exactly where this study occurred, but I know that there's been probably numerous studies done on elderly people in hospices that are in the final stages of their life. They ask them questions about their life and their how to say, the highlights and the regrets. The number one thing that people always say is they wish they had less fear. They wish they went for their dreams. They wish they spoke to that lady or to that gentleman, that they didn't have courage to do it. They wish that they'd done that business. They wish that they played that sport. Many people full of regrets, and it's not to say that they haven't achieved and haven't had other wonderful aspects of their life, but I think when you're facing life and mortality at that stage, you're always wanting more time, more opportunities, and those regrets come to mind. Now, having gone through what you've gone through, although absolutely devastating and difficult and challenging, would you say that they're also a blessing in disguise, because you've got to face that moment in your life that a lot of people don't get to face until they're 90 years old, and that's when they've got the regrets. But being at a younger age and having that opportunity, I guess, to realize, you know what, I'm going to go for it. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit on that? Because I think there's an incredible learning curve here for people that are listening.
Yeah, I would say this: not all scars show up on your skin. A lot of them are inside your body, and all scars add resilience and growth and strength in every single person. It's dependent on how you decide that you want to approach it. You can either decide, and some people feel like they don't have the ability to decide, but you are in control, you are in the driver's seat. You can decide if you're going to turn this into a positive or a negative. So I went inward and decided that this is only going to turn into a positive because there's no choice to have it become a negative. There was no reality for me that this was going to snowball into negative, 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 negative. It's always let me find the icing on the cake here. I have outward scars, and those outward scars, I wear them with pride because they truly did provide me with resilience and make me the person who I am today, the father, the business person that I am today, the friend, the family member, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah. If I use an analogy as a personal fitness trainer, which I did for many years and had the opportunity to work with many clients, training thousands of people all over the world with all different types of backgrounds and ability levels. There's a term called progressive overload that we use in strength training. It means that when you go to the gym and you lift some weight, let's say you do a bench press, and maybe the first time you do it, it's very, very light, maybe 20 pounds or 30 pounds or, you know, 10 kilos, 20 kilos, something like that. And you go home, there's a little bit of pain from that, because it's something you haven't done before and your muscles are waking up and they're like, hello, what's going on here? And so when they're saying, hello, what's going on here? The nervous system is sending a message to the muscle fibers to say, we've just done something that we haven't done before. We don't know if this guy or this lady is going to do it again. So let's make ourselves stronger just in case. And so what happens is the muscle fibers then they start to bond together, they start to grow, they get stronger, and they prepare themselves for the next time you do that. That's called progressive overload. The first 12 weeks of starting any fitness or strength training program is where you see the most results. That's why fitness is really, really addictive, because the first 2 to 3 months of people doing it, they see incredible improvements in their strength and their balance and all of the aspects of fitness, because that's when most of the changes happen. And then after that, the improvements are slower, but you can always continue to improve in different aspects of fitness. But that term progressive overload, that analogy, is something that when people such as yourself and many other people around the world that have faced something of, let's say, IVF, right? IVF was the first opportunity for you to go to the gym and do some weights. It was heavier than what you're expecting. It's something you had to go through, but you basically a term that Dave Goggins used is callous your mind, right? So you made your mentality, your emotion, your body, your resilience. You made it stronger by going through that. Now, IVF is not, let's say, typically a life or death situation, but it is an incredibly stressful and difficult thing to go through. But having gone through that, both yourself and your wife have made yourself, let's use the term, stronger, right? Then you faced another challenge later on, which was in the ER, I guess, when Chandler was being born. The lights flashing, the beeping sound, the doctors frantically running around. Oh my goodness, that's like another incredible, even more difficult situation that you found yourself in. However, you guys went through IVF before. You worked together as a team to face that challenge and come through on the other side and realize it was worth the effort. It was worth the struggle to go through it. So having had that opportunity to learn and progressively overload from that, now in the ER, you're already a little bit stronger than you would have been a few years before that. And then further to that, having learned the information about what Chandler was facing in his life, oh my goodness, that's another challenge. However, you had two previous challenges before that you got through, even though they seemed hopeless, and many people would have buckled at having to face them, but you didn't. You got through them. And that third challenge. And then the fourth challenge of yourself having to be the donor for Chandler. and then having to get, donating part of your liver, that's surgery, that's open surgery. So that's also something that is not easy to go through. However, you'd been through 3 experiences before that. And I also know another challenge that you've faced as well in the time that I've known you, but the opportunities of making yourself stronger prior to this year or to last year enabled you to be able to face that as well. There's a lot of people that face even small challenges in their life and they just give up. Like they lose a job. Okay, I got fired from a job. I'm just going to give up, and they turn to drinking or drugs or just that give up attitude. Some people face some small medical problems, and they just think, it's too difficult for me, and they fold and they turn to other ways to cope. I believe knowing your background of being a baseball player and the training that you go through, the highly intensive physical training to go through, to be a pro baseball, semi-pro baseball player is incredibly physically demanding. But everything that we do physically also makes us mentally stronger as well, because the central nervous system is all connected. So making your body stronger also makes your mind stronger. So just to summarize, like, what's the biggest learning curve that you've got out of the stories that you've told so far, up to, let's say, before 2024?
Look, I mean, I'd say my biggest takeaway maybe is what comes to mind is that to remember that you have a choice, that how you handle the situation is your choice, but more importantly, how you decide to react is even more your choice. Sometimes we can't control how we respond immediately, but you can go within, talk to yourself, ask yourself if this is this really how I want to respond to this, and then make a choice on what you want the result to be afterwards. Sort of take yourself forward and ask yourself, how do I want to learn from this? What's the good that I can get out of this? There's always something good that you can get out of things. It's interesting. Dr. Sharik Rao, I've been following him, and he says it perfectly. He says things don't happen to you; they happen for you, and it doesn't matter. There's nothing's defined by the universe as good or bad. It's just happening, and you and your reality, how you view things, determines your reality. So,
Yeah, fantastic. Maybe if we were to summarize with a quote quite aligned with what we've spoken about, the 2 words react and respond. If the doctor's prescribed some medicine for you and then you go back to see the doctor a week later and the doctor says you've reacted to the medicine, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a bad thing, right? But if the doctor a week later says, you've responded to the medication, then that's a good thing. So when you are facing a challenge in your life, just think about those 2 words. Am I reacting to this, or am I responding to this? Because responding is a positive way to do it.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Chuck. I hope everyone enjoyed our first episode, and look forward to joining us next time.
Bye, everybody.